Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
So, campaigning is slowly beginning again after the death of Labour MP Joe Cox on Thursday, with events planned today by both the official Leave and Leave groups. And we've heard already from big figures from either side on the airwaves this morning. Labour leader, Remain supporter Jeremy Corbyn, Leave campaigner Conservative Minister Michael Gove. They were both asked about immigration by Andrew Marr.
Is there any kind of upper limit to immigration coming into this country?
I don't think you can have one within while you have a free movement of labour, and I think the free movement of labour means that you have to balance the economy, so you have to improve living standards and conditions. And so that means the European Union's appalling treatment of Greece, particularly the European Central Bank as well as the European Union, that is a problem. So if you actually deliberately lower living standards and increase poverty in certain countries in Southeast or Eastern Europe, then you're bound to have a flow of people looking for somewhere else to go. Surely the issue is an anti-austerity, a growth package all across Europe, rather than this.
When I've had the opportunity to talk about migration during the course of this debate, I hope I've been very clear. I am pro-migration, but I believe that the way in which we secure public support for the continued benefits that migration brings, and the way in which we secure public support for helping refugees in need, is if people feel that they can control the numbers overall coming here. In Canada and Australia, two countries I very much admire, they have control, and therefore they're able both to welcome economic migrants and refugees.
So both sides talking about immigration again. Mr. Corbyn saying no upper limit as long as we have free movement in the EU. I mean, that is honest, but will not be welcomed perhaps by the Remain campaign.
Not in the slightest. Indeed, the Leave campaign sleeper agent in the very heart of Remain strikes again. It was the most extraordinary thing to say, and you can just imagine Jeremy Corbyn being piled full of briefing notes beforehand. He went on the telly this morning to say, whatever you do, please just play down immigration. Don't talk about people coming in their droves and nothing we can do to stop that. Threw the whole thing in the bin and just told it very truthfully, it must be said, as he saw it. And I think Remain will be absolutely king. It may even be the thing that precipitates a leadership challenge on him post the referendum on Thursday.
We should say there's much talk of that. There's no evidence it's going to happen. Jan, what did you make of it?
I thought it was a phenomenal performance as a covert agent for the opposite side.
You go along with him on this?
Not such a good performance as a sincere campaigner for Remain.
It was honest.
It was candid, and I still think there's an element of the country which is pro-Remain in the most grudging way possible, and therefore Jeremy Corbyn's approach might resonate a bit more than the more enthusiastic approach that you heard from George Osborne or David Cameron in recent days. But I thought the most telling thing we've seen this morning is when Nigel Farage was pressed on his controversial poster on migration of a few days ago. His response was to say, well, actually the mainstream Leave campaign have come up with some pretty fruity posters of their own on that subject. And I think the beginnings of a sort of split within those two sides of the Leave campaign on the tone of how you deal with the issue of migration might open up even in the last few days before Thursday.
Is there a difference now to the tone of this campaign, even when talking about immigration? Or is it back to business as usual?
There's a difference in the tone, but there isn't a difference in the content. Nor should there be. I mean, the substance of the argument remains the same. And Jeremy Corbyn put his finger ineptly right on it. If there is now, as a consequence of these hideous events of the last couple of days, a tendency, I'm afraid, a very irresponsible tendency, to try to imply that anyone associated with the Leave campaign, anyone who expresses, any ordinary person who expresses concerns about the numbers of immigrants or the inflow of migration, is somehow a right-wing extremist, a fascist, who is by implication associated with this crime.
Jeremy Corbyn didn't do that this morning.
No. I'm saying that there is a tone in the media coverage of it that implies that there is guilt by association with anyone who expresses concern about migration. And that is very dangerous, because the surest way to drive people into extremist, extra-parliamentary opposition and dissidents is to make it clear that no respectable politician will take up their concerns.
Did you agree with the Nigel Farage breaking point poster?
Of course not.
What's wrong with pointing it out?
Of course, nothing is wrong with pointing it out. But
You're talking about the poster showing the march of migrants, I think, into Slovenia.
Yeah.
Which George Osborne has poured petrol on the flames already by talking about the echoes of the 1930s.
Yes, I mean, but that's absurd to imply that everyone who expresses a concern about migration is in Nigel Farage's camp. I mean, your point, Andrew, about a split in the Leave campaign, there has been a split in the Leave campaign from the off.
I think that was his point.
Right, yeah, right from the beginning. I mean, there is a difference in tone between. Sorry.
I was going to say, the story last week was of a widening gap with Remain in the lead, was the opinion polls coming out. With Leave in the lead.
With Leave,
if
yeah.
you were on the Remain side now, would you not take some comfort from the polls today?
Especially from the fact that, according to YouGov, the move in the polls predates the killing of Joe Cox, and therefore you might conclude that there's a structural reversion to continuity, which often occurs before big elections. But it doesn't help that just as the conversation seems to be about economic insecurity again, you've got the leader of the opposition getting into a conversation about free movement and migration. One of the most telling poll findings this weekend, I think in the Sunday Times survey, is that the number of people who think they would lose out materially from Brexit has gone up from 23 to 33%, and that's how Remain win.
Okay.
I've been getting away with it all